I'm very happy to be doing this for the second episode, as Tornika said. Hopefully, we will reach the people or give some information to people that are interested in Eurasia region, and of course, Caucasus, Georgia would be one of our main topics that we'll be talking about constantly, and everything related to Russia, Russia's war in Ukraine, and today we'll be talking about wider region as well, implications of Syria and fall of Assad's regime on our region. So I'm delighted to be doing this again. And before we go into the conversation and start dissecting some of the issues, particularly related to Syria, there is a couple news items that we decided to tell you about in case you have not heard about them or you missed it. Today, Georgia's President Salome Zurabishvili went to the European Parliament, and she delivered a very emotional and uh, in some cases, some experts say that it's a history making speech from that very important um, microphone. She asked the European Union and members of the European countries to not to forget about Georgia, to make sure that they act swiftly and decisively to save Georgia's democracy, because Georgia is not fighting for its own future and democracy. It's also fighting for European values and overall democracy in Europe. So that was a very important visit, important invitation from the European Parliament. And we can get into the details of her speech later on, or just summarize it in a way that she was greeted with multiple applause. Georgian flags were displayed as she was speaking. And as I said, some experts say that this is a history making speech in many ways. And the second news item that is also very important for our region is that Russia started withdrawing its troops from Syria. Now, we don't know exactly how many and all the locations that the troops are being transported to, troops and equipment as well. But there is a movement for sure, and something important to keep an eye on and pay attention to. And Giorgi, if you want to add something to this particular news item, please feel free to just jump in.
Thank you, Iya. And greet our viewers. We don't know the numbers because the numbers differ from source to source, and they're somewhere between the 2,000 and 7,500 troops that are yet to be removed from Syria to Russia. But what is important to understand is that I think those rumors that there are negotiations related to how Russia can keep these bases, two main bases, I mean, Khmeimim and the port facilities in the Mediterranean are now closed because, as far as I understand, Russia has to remove their troops from everywhere and for good. So these are the main news from Syria related to Russia. Another news about Syria basically is, and very important one, the revival of the talks about the gas pipeline project from Qatar to Turkey that has to be connected to existing Nabucco project to supply European countries with the gas, which actually will, if that will be basically implemented, will for sure diversify the gas supply for Europe, and thus will assure energy security for the whole continent, and replace effectively even perspective to have Russian gas in the European market, which is very important for the countries of the region, for European continent, and I think for the prospects of Turkey in terms of becoming more and more an energy hub for Europe. And maybe the rest of the region as well. So those are, items that I would like to inform about, and I'll pass the stage to you again.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And let's talk more about the Turkey or Russian economy and what impact it will have, the Syria withdrawal or loss of Syria for Russia will have on the region. But let's initially let's start uh, from Ukraine and the impact of Russia's loss in Syria, as many are saying now that this is a clear-cut loss for Russia because they are losing not only the positions in Syria, but also in the Eastern Mediterranean as well. So we will probably see some sort of change in power balance between Turkey, Iran, Russia. Israel has also a very important role in the region, of course. So we'll see how it all plays out. But the immediate sort of impact that we could conceivably see may be in Ukraine. So let me go to other Giorgi now and ask him, what do you think would be the impact or is impact, if you're seeing anything in this direction, of Russia's withdrawal from Syria on the front lines in Ukraine, if anything? And what do you anticipate? How can this continue?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for viewers, and glad to be here. It's of course kind of like a whole context how Russia operates, including this Syrian and Ukrainian situation. In my opinion, it was a very big moral. I mean, it's a moral complex for Russians when they had to withdraw from Syria, as they had the reputation of winners, and the country which were going to take over everything they wanted and they needed. Of course, they need Syria and they want some oil resources there to sell resources from there and everything, but they had to leave because of force and the united force of the West and Turkey in this case. And about Ukraine, I think it's as a result, Ukraine and their leaders realize that Russia can be beaten, even it's so huge, and that they have lots of military resources, as we know. And this result can be achieved by complex coordination by the Western allies, including, of course, first of all, the United States, which actually sanctioned this Gazprom bank in November 21st. And there was a huge hit to Russian economy. This ruble is now in a big trouble, actually. And it's the result of this is that lots of factories and lots of malls in the cities, huge malls, not like small shops. They are under the damage, big damage, and they're gonna bankrupt and even close very soon if the situation continues like that. So when if oil prices can be regulated in the future by American administrations like current and the future, I think it will be like more hit to the Russian economy and more chances for Ukraine. I think that the American coordination against Russian power in Syria will be positively resulted in Ukraine as well. As as I told you, it's kind of complex stuff, and as a result, Americans wanted to somehow have a more leverage against Russia when Trump was talking about this peace treaty, for example. Um, I think Democrats they want to make like a better situation for this possible peace treaty, which is very there are lots of conversations by Trump in the previous years, even nowadays. And I think Americans want to have a huge leverage in their hands against Russia by this Syrian defeat of Russians. So it will be a huge factor in my opinion, and it will work positively for Ukraine's sake in the future. But there were like kind of negative attitudes towards like anticipation about what kind of administration and what kind of attitude of Trump will be in the future. But when we see this result in Syria, for example, I have kind of better hopes than before, in terms of Ukraine, and especially after Trump's tweet and post when he said that Russia is too much detained in the Ukraine situation, and they lost Syria. America's
Yeah,
all of them.
Georgi, let's talk about the whole American aspect, or the potential policies of the future administration, whatever we can sort of discern based on what we know now. But to come back to the issue of Syrian withdrawal, like what does it mean militarily for Russia? Georgi K. I will tell you. I will address you as Georgi K and Georgi. Eh, Other Georgi. I'm sorry, like, too many Georgis in one podcast.
Well,
If you have
that's the
any,
most popular name in the country.
yes, yeah, to those people who are newly introduced to Georgia, Giorgi is a very popular name in Georgia because it's after Saint George, and the name of the country in some cases is argued that is also after Saint George. Georgia would be that. But there is a different etymology of the word is different. But I'm just saying that we have many Georgis because of this reason. But to come back to the conversation, Georgi, what do you think from the military implication standpoint? How do you see Russia's loss in Syria? What impact, what's positive, what's negative for Russia in this case?
Well, there are no positives, obviously, as far as I understand. The main negative here, and very visible and feasible one, is that Russia showed its real weakness, because being on the ground for around a decade, they were not able to first foresee this significant offensive that was in preparation for probably a long time. Second, and very important one, is that they were not able to help Assad regime to survive, like effectively drawing some defenses around some, important parts of the country where they were actually present. And basically, they also show that they were not able to supply their troops on the ground in Syria with enforcement and logistics. So, for the rest of the world, for military analysts, probably, I think this is the sign of Russia's military decline, and the significant one. Whatever we see in Ukraine, we have to understand that, Ukrainian front is next to Russia, so the supplies and all the logistics are much more easy for them. But to project their military force somewhere far away from their borders, that is gone, and not only for the Middle East, and for the first time after probably the Second World War, Russia will be very much out of the huge Middle Eastern flank or region in general. And for that matter, what is also important to understand, historic rivalry between Turkey and Russia, and this historic rival, I'm talking Turkey, will be reintroducing its power and basically influence in the Middle East that was not present there ever since the end of the First World War, which is also a very important development. So we see basically the big rearrangement possibilities in the Middle East that is coming.